Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, Lynn Meek, to Roots and Branches of Lehi, where we get to know you. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming on here today.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Let's get to know you. Let's start with who you are. Who is Lynn Meek? What are you from Lehi originally? Where'd you grow up?
No, I grew up in Preston, Idaho, actually in Riverdale on a dairy farm. We also had a cattle ranch, so it was a combo.
Yeah.
And very different from here.
Yeah, I bet that was fun growing up on a farm like that, right? Ranch and stuff.
It was. It was a good life.
Yeah. A lot of work.
Yes.
My guess, right? You probably learned to work at an early age.
Yeah.
At least that seems to be a common theme for a lot of people that live that kind of life, right? And so what brought you then here to Lehi?
I always wanted to go to college. My parents went to college. My grandpa even went to Utah State Agricultural College. So we're a family that values education.
Okay.
And so I came down to BYU. It's where I always wanted to go. And after being there for a semester as an engineering major, decided that wasn't for me.
Okay.
Went on a mission and then came back and ended up back at BYU.
Okay.
And then eventually here in Lehi as a student teacher and then a counselor eventually.
And so you pivoted from engineering to, what did you pivot to?
Initially social studies teacher.
Okay.
So I liked that. I never had studied a lot of social studies in high school, but when I got into BYU, I really loved the American Heritage class.
Okay.
It caught my attention. Okay. It was my class I looked forward to.
Really?
My engineering classes became kind of drudgery.
Okay.
And so I knew something needed to change.
But American Heritage was, it's funny, I got daughters at BYU right now, and American Heritage was the one that she was like,
the bane of her existence.
Exactly. She was having a really hard time with American Heritage.
I hear that a lot.
So I like that you, to each their own, right?
Absolutely.
So what did you like about that class? What stood out? Why did it appeal to you?
I think the history, the economics, political science, all of it came together.
Yeah.
And we had an excellent teacher.
Which matters.
Just really laid a lot out there for me that I hadn't understood before. And really proud to be an American and wanted to share that in the education system.
Yeah. Which she did come and say, she would say on America stuff, okay, I did learn that. So I knew she learned stuff from it, but I also know it was a really hard class for her too. But okay, that's cool. Go back to growing up on the ranch, Preston, Idaho. Any stories that you want to bring up from that childhood, from that time of your life that shaped you and maybe kind of made you go a different direction on some of these things, or made you go the direction that you are in as far as that goes?
I thought about this a little bit. It's interesting because being the oldest in the family, there weren't a lot of older kids around, even Riverdale, the area that I lived in.
Sure.
It goes in waves. And I happened to be like the only kid my age in the whole area. However, I had younger brothers and younger cousins, and there were a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So I had 5 total brothers, 4 younger than me, 7 cousins growing up.
Okay.
And because of me being the oldest, I was always in charge of, you go do this job, you do that job. And I kidded around with them, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I think I always enjoyed that kind of role. And so it's not so super surprising I ended up in education where I could work with young people.
Yeah, interesting. And so you, so social studies is what you were studying. And so take me on the path of where you ended up, because obviously right now you're a counselor, right?
Yeah.
And so give me the kind of timeline there. What were you, did you go from college to counselor, or did you do other things in between there? Give me that little layout.
So I started with the idea that I was going to do political science and history because I loved those things.
Sure. Yeah.
That was kind of what American Heritage was. And so I decided to major and minor in those 2 things.
Okay.
And I was going to teach, and I got into the education classes.
Okay.
And Garn Coombs, who was the department chair over secondary education, pulled me aside and he said, Lynn, I think you could be a good teacher, but you're not marketable. What you're doing isn't going to work really well. You're very limited on where you could work.
Okay.
So he counseled me to get a social studies composite degree, which means I did a little bit of economics, political science, history, geography, sociology, psychology, and became qualified to teach all those things.
Okay.
And I really wanted to teach high school, and I thought I wanted to teach AP classes. That was really my initial thought.
Yeah.
And so as I began that journey of trying to find a student teaching experience, I didn't really know people in Utah County. I didn't have any connections.
Sure.
So they just assigned me to come out to Lehi Junior High and be a student teacher. And I remember that summer after I'd received the assignment before the school year started, which was 1989, every time I'd drive by Lehi, I'd get this gnawing in the pit of my stomach. I didn't think I wanted junior high, and I really was pretty nervous about it.
Sure.
I didn't know if I could relate to kids that age. And
Sure.
I thought, I don't know why they put me in a junior high instead of a high school.
Yeah.
So I ended up at Lehi Junior, and the first, I'd say at least a month, I didn't really like it very much.
Okay.
The kids were kind of naughty.
Yeah, sure.
Junior high kids tend to be that way sometimes. My cooperating teacher had a health issue, so he wasn't around much, and I was kind of just out on my own trying to make this work.
Sure.
And I don't know when it turned. It wasn't something immediate, but by the time I'd been there about 12 weeks, I was enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I did get an assignment to go to Pleasant Grove High School for 3 weeks to finish off my student teaching experience.
Okay.
They wanted us to have a little bit of both.
Sure.
And I realized being at Pleasant Grove High School, that junior high experience was actually pretty fun. Some of the high school kids are a little bit checked out. Some of them are, I did help with a couple of AP classes, and
Yeah.
I found that sometimes they were, what do we have to do to get a grade? They were so focused on that, they'd forgotten to have fun learning.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just an interesting student teaching experience.
Yeah.
I ended up still wanting to teach high school. That was still my goal, and wanted to go back to Cache Valley.
Okay.
But I also applied to schools around this area too.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a job offer at Lake Ridge Junior High.
Okay.
So I took that, taught there for 2 years, history and geography, Utah history, U.S. history, world geography, and that's how the teaching part went.
Okay. And so you did get to do what you wanted to do, I guess, which
Yes.
was teach in those fields and stuff like that. So how long did you teach then in the things you enjoyed, the politics, the social studies, American heritage kind of stuff, right? How long did you do that for then?
I only did it for 2 years.
For 2 years, okay.
Yeah, I planned on doing it for at least 5, and I planned on getting a master's degree.
Okay.
And my initial thought was I'd had some pretty good school administrators growing up. I thought, I think I'd like to go into administration after I teach for a few years.
Yeah.
So I showed up my first day at Lake Ridge, and my mentor teacher was a guy named Ralph Jams, and Ralph was fantastic.
Good.
He said, hey, Lynn, what are your plans? I
Yeah.
told him about, I'll teach for several years and probably go into administration.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, watch what the administrators do for a few months, and let's talk in the spring.
Okay.
So I said, all right.
Yeah.
So spring came, and Ralph said to me, hey, the BYU Educational Psychology Department's putting together a cohort of school counselors. There's a shortage in the state right now, and they're trying to recruit a bunch of people to come be school counselors. I'm going to go check it out. Do you want to come with me? And I said, I've got a commitment that night. I can't remember what it was.
Sure.
But pick up some literature. I'd love to learn about it.
Yeah.
So he brought it back to me and shared it with me, and I ended up applying, and that's kind of how the school counseling thing started.
So did it start fairly soon after that then?
Yes.
You start, okay. So you've now been a counselor then, so you did 2 years of teaching and
Right.
counselor ever since?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, 34 years of counseling.
Okay. And it sounds like Ralph played a pretty big role there.
Big role, yeah. Ironically, one of my coworkers, Tyler Davis at Skyridge, had Ralph as a school counselor, and he also influenced him to go into counseling.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. Ralph was a great mentor.
Yeah. And maybe we'll pause the narrative for a little bit, but talk to me about why the importance of mentor. How important are mentors?
Oh, huge.
I don't know if you want to speak to that for a second on that.
Yeah. If I could pick maybe the 8 things that matter the most to healthy human beings, a mentor would be one of those things.
Yeah.
We need people that are a little bit ahead of us, that kind of know the way but are relatable and,
Yeah.
and are with us.
Yeah.
And I'm really appreciative for a lot of mentors that I've had over the years.
Which I think you just nailed it. They don't even have to be super talented, educated. It's just they're a little bit ahead of us. I think that's actually a very key phrase, right? They're just a little bit ahead of us. And so it's, hey, come this way. Hey, I've already
Try this
explored.
out.
I've explored this area. I've cut down the brush on this path. Follow this path, right?
Exactly.
And I think that helps people and stuff. So, no, I love that. And obviously it started on your career. So it's 34 years, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that's a long time to be and doing something. And so thank you, Ralph, for doing that.
Yes,
okay.
thank you, Ralph.
So speak to that. Obviously, you still chose to go into counseling. Why? What appealed to you about it? Why did you choose that?
As I watch the administrators, they play obviously a really important role in education, but especially at the junior high level, they were spending a lot of their time either disciplining teachers, disciplining students,
Yeah.
trying to just keep things going.
Yeah.
And as I saw the counselors and had a chance to do a little practicum experience in their offices, I felt like they had the ability to connect with students way more, particularly over a period of years.
Sure.
And so I just felt like it was more along the lines of my personality, what I'd like to do, and also maybe my talents.
Okay. Because you get to really, you're not the disciplinarian,
More
right?
the mentor.
Yeah, they're more the mentor, right? You really get to go in there and just talk to people. So talk to me about the average day of a counselor. If somebody was considering that profession, especially on a school, because you're employed by the school, right?
Yeah.
The school district.
Correct.
So talk to me about what's an average day like for somebody that's doing that kind of job?
Most times of the year, there's not really an average day.
Okay.
Which is one of the things I like.
Okay, sure.
There's a lot of variety.
Okay, good.
We probably spend, at the junior high level, about a third of our time helping kids plan for the future. At the high school level, that comes close to half the time for me. Another thing that we do a lot is just help with dropout prevention and responsive services, helping kids that are struggling, helping parents that are struggling to connect with their kids, things like that.
Okay.
At the junior high, we spend a fair amount of time in the classroom, probably about 20% of the time. At the high school, that turns out to be about 10% of the time. Okay. And that's one of the things I love. I haven't had to give up teaching. I still get a chance to do that in a larger setting quite often. And then we spend some time doing paperwork and being in meetings and all the other things. That kind of takes up that last percentage of our time.
Sure. The fun part that any job has, right?
Every job has those things.
Okay. So talk to me then about, as far as what kind of things do you see with students, and are you helping them with major issues, or is it mostly always school related or maybe family related kind of things?
Oh, it's all kinds of things.
Okay.
If I could maybe characterize this as the parent at school, I'll never take the place of a parent because no matter how good or bad a parent is, they're the parent.
They're the parent, yes.
But I think we have an opportunity and really a stewardship to be the parent at school. So whether that's advice about a career, help with college applications, helping with a rough day, friendship issues, family issues, whatever it is that kids are dealing with, that's what we deal with.
And have you seen that change a lot over, so 34 years, so you've been doing this for a while. Have you seen a lot of change in just, obviously in society at large we have.
Sure.
But what have you seen on that level of things in relation to your job?
Yeah, really a big difference. Back in the day, we didn't have a lot of suicide issues. In fact, I think I went the first maybe 27, 28 years. We didn't have a suicide in the schools where I was at Lehi Junior High, or at Skyridge. Unfortunately, around COVID time, that started to change. In other places, it had changed sooner.
Sure.
I think we'd had some good prevention programs here in the area, and that helped.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot more mental health challenges. We now do QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer for all the sophomores, so they understand how to help a friend or a family member that might be dealing with suicidal thoughts. That's one of the things that we've become pretty passionate about because of the current situation with mental health. Yeah. But I think it's more than that. It's anxiety, and we struggle, I think, in the area with some perfectionism.
Sure.
Kids feeling like if they don't get a 4.0, there's no hope for them, that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
That's probably the biggest change.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, this area, we had a lot more fights at school.
Okay.
Things like that. It was interesting.
Sure.
More discipline issues in that way and fights and just kids being kids.
Yeah.
We had more drugs, I think, then than we do now.
Okay.
But some of these other challenges are pretty hard today.
So more physical. So, use of drugs and fights. Now, are there as many drugs and fights?
There's certainly drugs.
Okay.
It's rare to have a fight. I think maybe we had 2 fights at Skyridge this last year.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you could call them a fight.
Sure. But why do you think that's changed? Why? Obviously, that's a positive thing, I guess, no fights. But is that just society continues to change, we evolve, and we find other ways to, I don't know. I'm not sure if you have an answer for that, but that's interesting that fights have gone away.
Yeah.
I remember, obviously, in high school, there was always a fight or two every now and then. So I was in high school in the 90s. I graduated in 2000. So that's my time. I remember those things. But you're right. Nowadays, it does seem less physical things and more...
A lot more conflicts with words.
Yes.
And that makes it difficult. And so people, turn inward and they have some of those mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Conflict is still there. It's just we don't deal with it physically. I don't think society accepts that as much as we used to.
Sure. It used to be okay to do that, I guess.
Plus, back in those days, Lehi was a fairly small town. And like when I first started at Lehi Junior in 1989 as a student teacher, there were no stoplights in Lehi.
Okay.
It was a very small town.
Sure.
There were 2 or 3 places you could eat.
Yeah.
Purple Pig Pizza
Yeah.
People remember that. It was one of them. It wasn't even open every day of the week.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, things have changed. So mental health now is something that obviously we talk a lot more about nowadays, right? And my guess is it's always been, so even back in the day, it's always been part of things. We just didn't maybe know how to identify it. I remember a kid at school that was quote unquote weird, and looking back, it's, he was probably autistic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We didn't know that word.
Absolutely.
We didn't understand what that was. But looking back, it's, no, he totally was. For us, he was just a weird guy that didn't talk that much, and I don't know. But
yes.
But looking back, I now can understand that. So are we just getting more aware of some of these things that have always been there? Or is also some things changing, like you also mentioned, like with fights and stuff like that, have stopped? So obviously some things are changing too. I don't know. There's a question in there somewhere, but I don't know. Speak to that.
I would say yes and yes. We've always needed to become more aware.
Okay.
And autism, for example, I get people that I never would have guessed have autism, and they're diagnosed now. And I start to look and I think, okay, that makes sense. And it starts to help me connect dots with students I worked with 30 years ago, and didn't ever see them as autistic, just saw them as maybe a struggling student or one that didn't care, things like that. So I do think we've made a lot of progress in being able to diagnose and intervene better with students that have some of those needs. And it's a larger part of the population than we used to think. We used to think it was 1 or 2%, and it's probably 5 to 10% when you really start to look at all the different parts of that spectrum.
Sure.
And it makes a huge difference. One of the changes I've noticed is students are way more willing to understand those things about other students, way more supportive when they have that understanding, less willing to bully. Now, there's still bullying, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I've learned that if you can educate students about what's happening, the bullying goes way down.
Yeah.
Because especially school-age kids, even high school kids, they want to see their peers succeed. They want to be nice people in general. It's pretty awesome, really.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it you asked was, has it become worse? And the answer is absolutely yes. There's plenty of research that shows that some of the behaviors that we do today cause more mental health problems. I heard an expert speak at a parent night we had a couple of years ago, and she said over 90% of the mental health challenges can be tied into sleep problems, improper diet, improper exercise. If we did a better job in those 3 areas, I'm convinced the mental health crisis would be significantly better. And then the social media and all the devices and screen time plays into all of that.
Yeah.
But in and of themselves, they're not the problem. It's the way we use those things and the lack of sleep and other things that they cause.
So I want to dive into that a little bit more, because I think you said some pretty good stuff there. So a lot of times people are going to say, hey, no, social media or screen time, hey, my kids are too much, that's why they're depressed and stuff like that. And you're not saying that's necessarily the case. You're saying it probably has more to do with the fact that they're not using their bodies and doing exercise too, right? It's okay to play a video game, to do different things, but are you also going out and running around too? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's absolutely what I'm saying, yes.
Okay. And so a lot of times we get focused on maybe the wrong thing, I guess, then, right? So if we knew those 3 core things, and so maybe speak to those 3 again, repeat them again, so anybody don't have to go backwards and rewind it, but tell us why those things are important. I think you just talked about something very important there. But
yeah, I think the sleep crisis is the biggest one.
Okay.
I'll do a lesson in health, for example, and ask sophomores to raise their hands if they got 8 hours of sleep last night, and it's generally 10-20% of the room. The rest are less than that.
Sure.
And we try to promote that and encourage that, because sleep is the number one thing that is going to make a difference with our bodies. Absolutely. Exercise is really important, and proper diet is really important as well.
Yeah.
And the 3 of those allow our brain chemistry to be the way it needs to be, the way it's intended to be.
Sure.
And we can do much better with mental health when our brain chemistry is right.
Yeah. So what advice do you give people as far as trying to get better sleep? I'm guessing there's a lot of things pulling our attention, right? One more Netflix binging, I want to watch one more show or whatever. But what advice do you have to try to get better sleep?
Make it a priority.
Okay.
And if you have sleep issues, go see a doctor. There are people with sleep issues, and there's things that can be done.
Sure.
It makes a huge difference. I suffer with sleep apnea, for example.
Yeah.
And when I first discovered that in about 2018, it was awful. I was getting headaches all the time. I wasn't functioning well.
Sure.
Finally went in to see the doctor, and by the time I got that treated, my life came back.
Yeah.
It was such a huge thing. And I'd known the issue before, but that really brought it home to me.
Sure.
When I realized how many teenagers are going without enough sleep and really not having enough gas in the tank.
Sure. you got to pause, right? You got to take time to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
So, okay, so anything else on sleep on that? Any other advice on sleep? Okay.
No, I think that's good.
Okay. So then moving on to diet then, what advice would you have for diet? What are things that you found as far as helping people there? And you can speak to diet and exercise, both of those, but...
Yeah, diet is super basic, I think. Eat some breakfast.
Okay.
So many people don't eat breakfast, and you don't need to eat ham and eggs and whatever
Sure, so
every day.
Yeah.
But something nutritious, something that'll get some gas in the tank to start your day. So many of the students don't eat lunch or don't eat a good lunch. And it's challenging. We only have a 35-minute lunch.
Sure.
Kids want to run and get something at a fast food place or whatever, which you can argue how healthy that is.
Sure.
Struggle to get back to school. Sometimes school lunch isn't that appealing.
Yeah.
And they just don't eat very well at lunchtime. So often they maybe get one good meal a day.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
I think adults, we struggle with that too.
Sure, for sure.
And I think if we all did a better job mentoring in that regard,
Yeah.
I think it'd make a difference for our teens and our younger kids.
So just prioritizing, and I'm assuming same thing with exercise. Here's the nice thing about knowing that those are the three things that probably influence it the most is then we can prioritize them, right?
Absolutely.
So if we know what actually needs to be done, how to get better, then we can do it, right?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times it's an information we don't understand. It's probably not that important. Or, oh, I didn't realize it was something as simple as sleep. You know what I mean? And we've all had that when you're talking to somebody, it's okay, we need to go to sleep. This isn't working. The conversation is kind of degrading. It's going downhill. Let's rest for a minute, right? And then let's revisit this when we have fresh minds, right? I think we've all had experiences like that. And so it just makes intuitive sense that would obviously contribute to mental health and stuff.
The exercise piece, I'll just mention a couple of things. We're a sports crazy town.
Sure.
So a lot of our kids do exercise quite a bit.
Yeah.
We also have really good marching bands, and that's great exercise. There's lots of ways to exercise.
Yeah.
And I find that of the three, our students probably do the best with that area.
Okay.
But there are many who don't get proper exercise. Honestly, there's a few that probably get too much.
Sure.
So just finding that proper balance and taking care of ourselves and making it a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah. I like that. No, and I like that a lot. Are you then kind of less concerned about some of those other things, screen time and social media, or you're saying, hey, there's still, I don't know, speak to that. Because obviously you're saying the three things are the most important. Speak to those for a second.
I would say when cell phones first came out and junior high kids started coming to school with cell phones, I thought, this is crazy. This is awful. It's ruining their lives.
Yeah.
I would say probably 2005 or so, I had a change of heart on that. I realized, hey, technology's here to stay. It's what we're working with. It's what the world is.
Yeah.
Let's help these kids have the technology, but learn to use it and learn to manage it instead of becoming addicted to it. I think that's something that we as a school system can help with.
Yeah.
Some of the laws that are being put in place right now by the state legislature where students have to put their cell phones away during class, that's made a big positive difference.
Okay.
But I think it's important they still have access to those things and they learn how to use them, because I have seen a few, they get those things when they're maybe 18 years old and they've never learned how to use them, and they suddenly become addicted, don't know how to use it at all. So it's like everything else. We need to be educated while we're under our parents' supervision and the mentorship of others, and then it becomes a really positive thing.
I like that a lot. That kind of validates me as a parent, because when I went to BYU myself, I found it very interesting. Some of my friends that I had there, they had parents that were very strict.
Yes.
And so when they went to BYU and they're off on their own, this was the first taste of freedom they had. And all of a sudden, they learned about a new video game and they played all day, skipping classes, and actually end up failing some of these classes, right? Because they just didn't do it, right? And other times, other people with just different freedoms that they never had, right? And I can't blame them, because I get it. You were very strict before, you had parents that were very strict, and so now you have this freedom. And so that's what I've always thought with parenting is, I would rather have them make mistakes in the home.
Yes.
Than at 18 and 20, where now the consequences are a lot worse, right? Missing a whole semester of school, the payment of the bad, all that is bad, right? But at home, okay, hey, you're having a hard time with this. I don't know. It just seems to make more sense to have problems in the home. Same thing, financial thing. I want to get my kids a credit card as soon as I can, or start to teach them these things, because $500 limit is easy to recover from. A $10,000 limit is a lot harder, right? That same concept, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So I like that. So I appreciate the validation. You didn't even know you gave it to me, right?
The idea is we live in a really self-indulgent world where consumerism is so big, and we live in that world where all this stuff and things are important. And being able to be self-reliant in that self-indulgent world requires some growth.
Yeah. And again, the home is probably the best time to do it, and at school and do it. So I like that you're saying multiple voices. Yeah, and that's what obviously you guys are, like you said, a form of a parent at school, and so you're teaching these kids how to use a phone, right? Because we're all going to have a phone. It's just we all use it, and so learning how to use it for good as opposed to for having it be something that distracts you from actually living life, I think is important. And I get that people can go down rabbit holes of not good things, and there's ways to protect those things, but I don't know.
Well, and going back to the sleep thing, how many of us put our cell phones away at 9:30 or 10 o'clock or whatever time that is for us?
Yeah.
And it's on the charger and it's away and it's turned off and we're not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And yet how many of us let it wake us up during the night?
Sure.
Or keep us up?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. And again, so just learning how to, okay, hey, I'm going to put silence notifications from this time to this time, right? So again, just using some of these things. I like seeing my kids use the calendar. And so hey, did you put it in the calendar? Because this is our family calendar. And if we don't know, if it's not in there, we don't know about such and such event, right? And so just teaching them how to do some of these skills, I think early on is very important. So anyhow, I like that. I like that a lot. So any other things on that topic before we move on? But
no, I think that's good.
Okay. So 34 years, obviously you've been doing this for a little while and stuff like that. What's kept you engaged in your job? What passionate about what you're doing and stuff like that? When you're doing something for that long, sometimes it can get a little,
yes,
right? And so talk to me about how have you been able to stay engaged in that process?
One of the things I love about education is no matter what you're teaching or what you're doing, you're working with people, and the people always change.
Yeah.
So there's those relationships and those challenges that come with relationships, good and bad challenges, that really keep it fresh. I think one of the things that I discovered after being at Lehi Junior for 24 years, I was inside at least. I hope I wasn't outwardly less patient, but the junior high was good to me. It was really a good time in my career.
Yeah.
And it was a very appropriate thing that I did it for the time that I did. But I noticed I was starting to feel a little less patient with some of the junior high behaviors, and I didn't quite have what I thought those kids needed. And the opportunity came to go to the high school level at that point, and that was really good. It gave me a little bit of a fresh perspective, some new challenges, and opening a new school was monumental. Yeah. Such a big job, but really was satisfying. Yeah. So that helped a lot.
And speak to that for a second. So you're talking about Skyridge. And so what was it like to start afresh? So there's no programs, there's no nothing. Obviously, all the teachers came from somewhere before, and so they're all coming with their own backgrounds of what a school should be running like and stuff. Talk to me about what was it like to kind of start that from scratch?
To me, it was a lot of fun because my mother-in-law, her back property line is the Skyridge property line as well. So I'd watched that field for years and knew a high school was going to be built there. Yeah. And at some point, I thought, maybe I'd like to be part of that. We'll see how it goes. Sure. And it kind of drug on. It took a little longer because of the growth out west and the need to build Westlake and build some of those other schools out west. But anyway, when the time came for Skyridge for the groundbreaking and for the chance to start putting everything together, by then I really knew I wanted to be part of it. And so just being in the community this many years and kind of knowing what our families needed, knowing the potential that was here to have some really fantastic programs. Yeah. And then Joel Perkins, our initial principal, was one who had a lot of vision and wanted to hire the right people. That's something Joel always has said he believes in, is surrounding himself with the right people and then letting them do their jobs. Yeah. And so watching him hire people that were going to be proactive and put students first, and then putting in place some of the outstanding programs that have been put together just was really satisfying. But lots and lots of hours and lots of work. Yeah, lots of work. Yeah. Speak to that. What are some of the challenges you think that you have in your job? What things do keep you up at night? What challenges do you have with this job? Probably the fact that you can't control things you'd like to control. Okay. And that's a good thing. Sure. But you can't control if parents are nice or not to their kids. You can't control if teachers are all prepared and patient and doing all the things that you'd like them to be doing. You can't control what the kids ate for breakfast or whether they got enough sleep. Sure. What you can control is your attitude, your willingness to help. You can try to create the best environment possible purposefully. Yeah. And try to give them that 6 or 7 hours there at school, the best experience that you can. So just trying to be purposeful about creating that environment is probably the thing I spend the most time thinking about. Okay. And on that note, obviously you've dealt with a lot of students over the years. What have
I'm assuming they've probably taught you a thing or two like that seems to be always
Oh, yeah.
the teacher's not always the one actually teaching. They're sometimes the one being taught too, right? So, but anything stand out as general principles or specific examples of things that students have taught you?
I would say one of the most surprising things was early in my career, I didn't notice kids saying thank you very much. For example, thank you for a good lesson or those kinds of things. As my career has progressed, I really noticed, especially in the early, there was just a real positive, I don't know exactly what it was societally, but just a lot more kids would do that to their teachers in general and to each other. And I think the supportiveness that our communities built, for example, the Lehi and the Skyridge bands support each other extremely well.
Yeah.
They have an incredible, what I would call camaraderie.
Good.
And so learning to break down some of those barriers, people want to have rivalries and want to hate American Fork or want to hate whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think there's certainly always going to be an element of that.
Yeah.
But I've seen, I think, an improvement in that area and learned a lot. And it's helped me to be a better person in terms of looking for the good in others and not being a rival, but being a friend to those that are have other walks of life or other attitudes or other beliefs, things like that.
Sure.
I think this generation does a really good job with that.
With kind of coming together and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have a desire to do that, and they do a great job in general.
Yeah, good. I like that. Obviously, you've worked with a lot of parents over the years, too. What things have you learned from parents / what advice would you give to any parents listening on this subject?
I've learned that parents that keep trying are successful. I think sometimes parents feel overwhelmed and feel like they're failing. They actually rarely are, in my view, as I've watched. I also think that parents don't always recognize that they have a right to know, call it inspiration, call it whatever you want, what their kids need. And I've learned to trust that. When parents feel like something needs to happen, I might give them other ideas and some other thoughts, but ultimately I've learned to believe in the parent's decision and trust in that. Yeah. And I feel like parents who do that end up in a much better place, and their kids end up in a much better place.
Yeah. Talk to me about, still on the parent topic, but obviously some teenagers do have a hard time, right? Yeah. And sometimes they are really struggling with whatever.
Right.
What advice do you have to parents specifically for those teenagers that are really, hey, they're going through some hard things and stuff like that?
Try to understand what's happening. I had an experience with my oldest son where we got along fantastic for most of his life, but his junior year in high school, we struggled. We just didn't get along, and it seemed like we were always at each other's throats for something.
Sure.
And one day he just blew his top and he said, "Dad, you never see anything good that I do." And I thought, whoa, that actually isn't true, because I see you're a really good kid. You do a lot of good things.
Yeah.
He had really 3 issues. One is his room was always messy. 2 is he tended to be late for things. And 3, he wouldn't do his homework without being reminded. Those were really the issues I had as I thought about it. But I'd harped on those things so much that he thought I was his enemy, and we just struggled. And it took a few months to get that tide turned. Yeah. But it changed our relationship back to what we wanted it to be, and it's been a great thing. So I'm grateful that he was able to express through frustration and yelling really what I should have noticed all along, and that is what he needed, what he was missing. Yeah. And that was that supportive thing, someone who believed in him and pointed out his strengths. So I would just share with parents, look for the strengths, make sure those are accentuated, make corrections, obviously, as needed too.
Sure. I like that story a lot. And I like that you took that feedback from your son, right? So you could say, no, of course but okay, he's feeling this way, so there must be truth to it. You know, even though I know my heart, I know I do really value him and do this, but obviously he's not hearing it, or at least not enough.
Yeah.
He's hearing the other things too much and not enough on this side, right? And so,
exactly.
So good on you for pivoting and making a change there, right? And obviously repairing that relationship. And I think that's probably some other advice then for parents too is, hey, listen, right? And it seems like there's less of this nowadays, but I think it used to be, hey, very hierarchical in society.
Do it because I said so.
Exactly. Hey, I'm the boss, right? And so I know best. Father knows best. Mother knows best. And it's most of the time maybe that's true, but the reality is we can learn from those younger than us, right?
Yes.
And so I think maybe this is more in society now already, but knowing that I think is helpful, right? Hey, no, my kids can teach me things. I remember several times in my own family life where it's like, okay, hey, I appreciate you, daughter, telling me that, because I'm going to pivot now. I didn't know that you were feeling this way. I want to change and do it this way, right?
And I feel like the millennial parents tend to do that more.
Sure.
It's a strength of millennial parents.
Good.
We could talk about some weaknesses, but
Sure,
that's a really big strength.
Sure. Let's talk about the weaknesses then too. What things are we doing? What things can we do better on too?
One of the things that I've noticed with this group of parents, sometimes they don't know how to be parents. They forget that they can set a line and say, this isn't okay.
Sure.
For example, it's not okay to skip school.
Sure.
I wish I had $1 for every time. I can't get him to go to school. You probably can. Maybe you need some support and help with that, but you probably can.
Yeah.
And so just trying to set those boundaries a little bit stronger while still providing the amazing support and good listening skills that they have.
So maybe where you're saying the pendulum swing a little bit where they're not being the hard-nosed boss, but maybe they're being too lenient then too. Is that
Right.
kind of what you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
A little bit permissive sometimes.
Permissive. Sure. Yeah.
And
That's okay.
the studies are really clear. Really controlling parents create really bad kids,
Sure.
right? And really bad adults.
Yeah.
And you go clear to the other side of the spectrum. If you're really lenient and really laissez-faire as a parent, that creates terrible people too.
Okay.
Finding that middle ground where you're a great listener but provide support and structure, that's so needed. And we live in a place where there's a lot of really fantastic parents. I've watched so many parents do that and learned from so many great parents in the Lehi area.
Good.
It's a great place to be.
It is a great place to be. I agree. Are there any stories that stand out from 34 years of students that you've been able to see change, and any success stories or any tragedies or anything, any stories that just in general stand out that are worth sharing here?
I'm going to start with the tragedies. My father-in-law is buried in the Lehi cemetery. He passed away of cancer in 2002. So I'd visit the Lehi. I hadn't really been in the Lehi cemetery much prior to that. But as I've gone to his grave several times a year, and as I look up and down the rows, I see several former students, some who've died of cancer and other health issues, some of suicide, some with accidents.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy when young lives end too soon, and especially if it could be prevented.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that probably tears at my heartstrings.
Sure.
Is people who are younger than me that I value and mentored that are not with us anymore.
Yeah.
The positive side, we have some amazing students that have accomplished a lot. Some of the ones that stand out are those that maybe didn't believe in themselves, and then a teacher or counselor, myself, whoever believed in them and told them they could do something, and they finally caught a hold of it, and they did.
Yeah.
And they've become very powerful professionals in education, business, law, you name it.
Yeah.
Coaches, lots of different things as I look back over the years at some of the students that I've worked with. So it's exciting to do that. I think one of the fun things about being an educator in Lehi, particularly at Lehi Junior High, is there was this camaraderie, a sarcastic humor among the faculty. A lot of us had worked together for a very long time and understood. And there were just a lot of like pranks and different things that happened that made it fun. And kids were included in that, and they enjoyed that as well.
Sure.
I currently work with a couple of my former students as coworkers, and they like to tell stories about being a student in that environment and some of the things that they saw and the shenanigans that they appreciated.
Yeah. That's the benefit of being around for so long. Is now, I'm sure some of these students, you were my student, now you're my coworker, now you're my peer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's probably both rewarding and just interesting to be getting that old, right? Where you're seeing that kind of play out and stuff.
Right.
But talk to me about kind of Lehi, the school districts in general. What things do you see that we're doing well, and what areas do you think we need to improve as far as just like administratively?
Yeah, really great question. Early on when I was in Lehi, we struggled with test scores. Kids weren't, in general, great readers. I think we were maybe 37th percentile in reading my first year at Lehi Junior High, if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
That's not even close to true today.
Yeah.
In fact, as we kind of went through the process of really trying to address that, and obviously a population change and our more highly educated parents started moving into the area, and so a variety of things contributed to the improvement, but we're now some of the highest performing schools in the state of Utah and perform well nationally.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun to see the education system improve. There's been a lot of investment by the school district trying to get better teacher pay and retention of teachers within Alpine District, having it become more of a destination district where people wanted to be, versus the tradition was it was one of the lower paying districts.
Yeah.
Bigger class sizes and things like that back in the day.
Sure.
So I think an investment on the part of the taxpayers and the school board and others has made a big difference.
Good.
The other thing is just this idea of collaboration. So the school district years ago, this has been nearly 2 decades ago, really bought into the idea that if teachers worked with other teachers and created lesson plans and evaluated what they were doing, what they were accomplishing, that we'd get better results. And some of the teachers fought that. They liked being the Lone Ranger and just being, I can close my door and teach what I feel comfortable with, and it's a lot easier to do that and work with the kids. It gets a little messy sometimes trying to work with a colleague and figure out what's really the most effective way to do this.
Yeah.
But the collaborative culture where we have these early out days and the teachers meet has really made a big difference. And I think our district has been so successful, not only academically, but in fine arts, in the athletics, and all the different programs, due to the fact that collaboration happens.
I love that. I think we learned how important councils are in a lot of things, right? And that's what essentially this is, right?
Absolutely, it is.
Just a big council, because as I've learned in life, I'm not that smart. But if I have friends and different things, but together I can do a lot of things with other good people. Do you know what I mean? I don't know everything is my point. And so, but if you combine yourself with other people that are very smart, we can achieve a lot more together, right? Because there's things that I see that maybe they don't see, and there's things they see that I don't see.
Right.
And so together, you do raise everybody up. And so I love that. I think we had Principal Walwork on here a while back, and he talked about that too, with collaboration and doing that and stuff. And
this idea of collective efficacy really is one of the most powerful things that benefits students.
Yeah, no, I love that. So that was the good things. What things would you improve if you were boss for a day kind of thing? What things you're like, well, I think we could get better here?
This is a simple one, but I've advocated for it for a long time. If we could start high school a half hour later, it would make a big difference.
Okay.
Going back to our whole sleep conversation, 7:45 is pretty early.
Yeah.
And we have a struggle getting our kids to school on time. So many are tardy to first period.
Yeah.
Not that would immediately change if we did it at 8:15.
Sure.
But it would make it so I think teachers would have an easier time holding that line and saying, you know what, you can get here on time.
Yeah.
So I think trying to improve the attendance, and that's partly on the teachers to make sure that meaningful things are happening in the classroom.
Yeah.
Partly on the students to buy into that, partly on the parents to have some expectations.
Yeah.
But I believe in not only the state of Utah, but really nationally, there's an attendance crisis right now that we've got to figure out, or our education system is not going to accomplish what it needs to accomplish.
Yeah. And so just move everything back a half hour so people get out.
It would help, and then change some other things and expectations so that we really can be together in a classroom learning and interacting. And it's not about the times tables or whatever it is at the level of the age of the students. It's about, I believe, public education, people being in the same room together, learning, interacting, talking, communicating. That's what our society needs, is that ability. And we're losing some of that. We see it in politics. We see it in some of the other hate things that go on.
Yeah. Because you're saying, hey, just being in the same room together, learning together, and especially people that are diverse in their opinions, right?
Yes.
They're going to think differently than you. And that's not always a bad thing, right? Because again, if we go back to, it's a very good thing, right? Because if we go back to collaboration, we all have everybody thinks their point of view is correct. And maybe for your life, that was correct, right? But the reality is you have a different background. Growing up on a ranch, I grew up in North Dakota. Somebody else grew up in, Hawaii. Like we have different backgrounds, right? And so we come together and maybe one thing's left and one thing's right politically. But again, being in that same room together, I like that. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that, learning how to, as our governor would say, disagree better, right, kind of thing.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, learning those social skills. I've seen a drop over the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years in social skills. The ability for kids to look each other in the eye and connect.
Sure.
Things like that. Yeah. And I think that can be dealt with in the education system if we do it right.
That could be taught, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just because we're losing it doesn't mean we have to lose it. We can teach some of those things.
We need to be more intentional about that.
Sure. And how would you teach some of those things?
As a social studies teacher, it's easy.
Okay.
That's what I got into it for, is the opportunity to present some information, a situation, a historical event, talk about it, dissect it, discuss it.
Yeah.
You can read about it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the actual interaction is what social studies is all about, in my opinion.
Okay. I like that.
that can be done in lots of other subjects, but
Sure.
I'm biased. I think social studies does it best. And it's so hard to teach right now because of the divisiveness.
Yeah.
I feel for our social studies teachers. They're in the crosshairs of a lot of things.
Sure. Do they get, do you hear some of that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a tough thing sometimes.
Sure. Interesting. Because we're so opinionated, right? And the other side, whatever side you're on, is the devil, right? I mean,
Yes.
they're evil, they're bad. And that's not true. That can't. And
On the idea that things are being taught because somebody said they were being taught, meaning that there's a lot of rumors that go around about what's taught in the classroom.
oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so maybe, okay, so you're saying me as a parent, I lean one way and the teacher is leaning the other way, and so they're indoctrinating my kids. That was your
Part of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes those things happen, obviously, but often
Sure.
they don't, and yet they're rumored to happen, and so
Sure.
lawmakers get involved, and there's been threats of teachers having to have every lesson plan, every word of it, posted online ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
And that's just not sustainable.
Sure.
Nor can it be very effective when you've got to be able to adjust and get in the room with those kids and get them interacting, and then kind of go with the flow a little bit too.
Sure.
To be effective.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. It's a difficult world.
It is.
It's not
But it's
easy.
worth fighting for.
It's worth fighting for. I agree. It's some of these things that we need to learn how to do. And when things are hard, it does make us try to be more creative or try to do things better, and it elevates us all, or at least it can, right?
Yeah, it has that ability, rather than jump into our silo and make sure that we're surrounded by people that think like we do, and not be willing to reach out and grab hands and talk and figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that's something Lehi does very well. It's Roundup Week, right, on Lehi right now, and I think that's a good time where a lot of people come together, right, and do things together, the different events that the city puts on and stuff, and so
yes,
I can see there's a lot of benefit to Lehi as a community. I think that's one thing Lehi does very well. In fact, I've interviewed lots of people now in Lehi, and what I've come to the conclusion is there's just so many good people here. So many good people.
Couldn't agree more.
And I think that's what makes up a community. It's not one person. It's not, we can look at president and it's because of him or her, and that's not true. It's because of so many little people that no one ever knows. Because, hence the purpose of this podcast, try to shed light on people like you, Lynn. You're doing good.
Thank you.
You're doing good. Is there anything, so we've covered a lot of things. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to kind of talk on? Anything that...
I don't think so. Okay. I think that covers it pretty well.
Okay. This has been very enjoyable for me. I appreciate all you're doing. Obviously, you're on the front lines, right? Helping students. And I've had children myself at Lehi Junior and Lehi High School. And so whether you or your peers have helped them, I appreciate people like you, right, that are doing that. And I like that the world has changed where there is a lot more mentoring happening, right? I remember when I was going into college and different things like that, I wish I had more support because I didn't know, and my parents didn't know exactly. They helped me and stuff like that, but they're not experts in which class to take if I want to take this major, right, and stuff like that. And I think I like that. I think as a society, we're more like, hey, let's help. Let's hold. Even in my own business, I try to do that with home ownership, but I try to get people like, okay, I understand some of these things are hard for people to do, right? And so it's let me hold your hand for this process because I think it's just things are hard. And so people just need a little bit of help to get there, right? And I don't know, I appreciate all you're doing, and I like that society in general is focusing on that. All right, how do we help from here to here, right? How do we lift people up? And so, anyhow, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
thanks for having me.
So appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.